Okay, I'm back with another video. This one's going to be another Power Rangers video, but I want to go ahead and say this first and foremost. I'm going to do a better job of keeping track of the clock this time, so it won't be anywhere near as long as my last Power Rangers video was, which was over an hour and a half, so just want to get that out of the way right now. This one's, though, it's going to be a little bit, I was going to say it. I'm going to talk about my least favorite Power Rangers, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of it being like a rank, like my 10 least favorite, it's going to be my least favorite Power Ranger per every season of Power Rangers. So, and I also want to point this out right now, about a third to half of these, I actually do like these Rangers. I just think they're the weakest in that season in which they appear. So, again, this kind of came about when I was rewatching all the seasons again, and I realized some of the Rangers weren't as good as I remembered, or I felt some Rangers were like the only part of the team I didn't like. And if you did see my original video, some of these you probably already heard me talk about, so I'm going to also try and keep the ones I've already talked about pretty short. But yeah, so this is just going to be my least favorite Power Ranger per season review, I guess, for lack of a better term. And yeah, not that much else I want to say about this, because I want to keep the introduction short this time. So as always, there'll be timestamps for in the description and in the comments, so if you just want to hear just about specific seasons or specific Rangers, then you can just skip to the ones that you want to hear about. And like I said, this is all personal opinion. If you like these Rangers, hey, that's fine. They're just the ones I don't like, or the ones I like the least from every season. So, not much else to say. Let's just get into it. Alright, so for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, all 3 seasons of it, my least favorite Power Ranger is Rocky. And one quick point I want to make before I go on. For Rangers that appear in multiple seasons, whether it be just they appear like multiple seasons as a main character, or they just maybe come back for a team up or a cameo, I'm only judging them by their appearance in their season. So like if they come back next season for like 1 or 2 episodes, I'm not taking that into account. So for Rocky, of basically the 10 Rangers of the Mighty Morphin era, I feel like he was the weakest overall. And I do like Rocky, but I like him more in Zeo than I do here. And like I said, I'm solely sticking to how he was in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers era. Now, slight defense to Rocky. Two slight defenses to Rocky. First, when he came in Mighty Morphin Season 2, he also came in at the same time as Adam and Aisha. So for most of Season 2, he was basically grouped with those 2. And there really weren't that many episodes where he got individual focus. And he got a few in Season 3. But I feel of all individual focus episodes, Rocky's were the weakest overall. And again, part of that is because he kept getting lumped in with Adam and Aisha. And the other slight defense for Rocky is that for most seasons, Red Ranger is the leader. But for Mighty Morphin Season 2 and Season 3, Tommy, now the White Ranger, became the leader. Red was basically second in command. So Rocky didn't get that much to really show himself as a leader. Now, if Tommy was off on his own, Rocky essentially led the core 5. But again, Rocky as a whole didn't get that much development. He got a little bit more in Zeo, but that's not going to how I feel about him here. So yeah, Rocky just basically, I feel, kind of got the short end of the stick because he was either lumped with other people or basically was just second in command, so he didn't get much focus as a Red Ranger should get. But as a whole, I think he is a good character. I just wish he would have gotten better individual episodes than he got and more time to really show how great a character he could be on his own. So yeah, that's just kind of where he falls, unfortunately. But like I said, not bad, and that's going to be the recurring thing with a lot of these guys. I don't hate them, I just feel they were the weakest of the season, and Rocky just basically that's where he falls in the Mighty Morphin era. Okay, so similar to the ranking of the seasons video, I'm counting Alien Rangers as its own thing, and this one was actually fairly easy. Weakest Ranger from the Alien Rangers was Corcus, the Black Ranger. Even on the wiki, it describes him as the quietest member who's often just there in the background, and I think it's only because they needed a 5th member. Now, I said last time, Kako Ranger is one of my personal favorite Sentais, and it's one of the few I've seen all the way through. And I do like his Sentai counterpart, and that's the other thing I also got to mention right here. I'm not taking my opinions on the Sentai rank in basically where I'm ranking the Rangers. This is just, like I said, my least favorite Ranger from every season. And really, because similar to what I said when I was talking about Alien Rangers, there was only 10 episodes. But even then, I feel like all the other Alien Rangers at least got a few good moments or even an episode of development. Corcus is the only one who didn't. Like I said, there's really not that much I can say about this one. He was basically just the 5th member who had to be the 5th member. And for what he did do, which wasn't much, he was okay. Like I said, this is just where he fell. Like, he was the only one who really I didn't think stood out. I actually forgot his name. I had to look him up on the Wikia. And I was like, well, if he was the only one I could remember, then yeah, it's easy. He's the worst Ranger of this team, so that's just where he fell. Not much else I can say on this one. Power Rangers Zeo. If you saw my first video, then you know I already announced who my least favorite was for this season, and that was Trey Triforia. Now, I don't hate Trey, but to reiterate what I said in that video, I feel like Trey was a missed opportunity. You had a few good ideas you could have gone with Trey, and you didn't. Now, I do like having Jason come back to be the Gold Ranger again. I thought that was pretty good. But I feel like I said it was just missed opportunity. You could have done a few cool ideas with him. You could have had to explain. I mean, he gave some Zords and powers from Triforia. If he had been a Gold Ranger, he could have explained some of these Zords and powers better. Maybe you could have done more with this whole idea of 3 different beings not being together when they're morphed, but then have him be one being when he's morphed. It just seemed like this was a really cool idea that I sadly didn't waste. Now, I don't know too much about the behind the scenes about Zeo, other than they originally wanted a couple other actors for the role that ultimately none of them went with it. Again, Billy was one. Brad Hawkins from VR Troopers was another. And there were a couple other. I think Tommy, the actor who played Tommy's brother, who actually is was Jason David Frank's brother in real life, were all potential actors who could have been Trey Triforia or the Gold Ranger. Ultimately, they went with Trey Triforia. And again, I don't mind the idea of having an alien be the 6th Ranger. I just wish they didn't sideline him the way they did. Now, like I said, Jason coming back as the Gold Ranger was awesome, but just not fully utilizing Trey as the Gold Ranger, to me, will be one of the biggest missed opportunities in all Power Rangers. Now, again, I don't hate Trey, because again, this is going to be the recurring problem with a lot of these guys. I don't hate most of them, it's just because he was basically not used, and he did morph, and he did have multiple episodes where he was a Ranger, he qualifies, even if he wasn't the primary Gold Ranger. So yeah, this is just where he fell. Just wish we could have done more with him than we did, but sadly we didn't. So picking my least favorite Ranger from Turbo was kind of hard. Whereas Mighty Morphin also had a lot of Rangers that came in and replaced new Rangers, it was a little bit easier there for me to decide Rocky was my least favorite. With Turbo, though, it was a little bit hard to pick my least favorite, but in the end, I decided to go with Carlos. Now, I want to also point this out, referring to something I mentioned back at the beginning. I do like Carlos, as well as most of the second team of Turbo Rangers, more in Space than I do in Turbo. And while their character development starts in Turbo, I don't think any of them hit their peak until in Space. And Carlos, similar to the problem with Rocky from Mighty Morphin, he doesn't get that many individual episodes, and the ones he does get, I don't really care for. I think there's one where he becomes a vampire, and while there are a few funny moments with him, and he does work well with Ashley, for the most part, he as an individual Ranger, not really that interesting, and kind of, I wouldn't really say annoying, but just kind of underwhelming, I guess, for lack of a better term. I guess the rest of the Rangers, again, because they get better development in Turbo, in Space than in Turbo, I feel like, okay, yeah, they were all handled okay in Turbo. Carlos, I didn't really care for him for the most part in Turbo, and yeah, unfortunately, it's just where he fell. I mean, yeah, really not much else I can say about Carlos. I mean, I really do like the guy, but just in Turbo, he was just underwhelming, and this is just where he fell. So, yeah, not much else to say on this one. Okay, Power Rangers in Space. If you saw my original video, then you know Power Rangers in Space is my favorite season, and this was one of the harder ones to pick my least favorite Ranger from, because I really do like this entire team. I like all 6 Rangers. So picking my least favorite was a challenge, but in the end, I decided to go with Zane. Now, even in terms of 6 Rangers, Zane is, I'd say, middle ranking. He's not the worst 6 Ranger, he's not the best 6 Ranger. If I were to make a top 10 list of 6 Rangers, note to self, probably should do that someday, he'd probably be at the bottom of the 10. But he's overall a really good 6 Ranger. But I just feel, as a whole in this season, I feel just he didn't get as much development as I personally would have liked. Now, he has a great backstory, and I do really like the connection he has with Andros, as well as, I guess, the couple individual episodes he kind of gets focused for. But sadly, he gets basically sidelined for a good chunk of the second half of the season. And that's basically the reason why I felt he needed to not, why he basically was my least favorite. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the whole him basically going off to help the KO-35 Rebels, and then him coming in every now and then to help out the Rangers. It was pretty good and pretty well handled. But I feel, like I said, because he was kind of sidelined a bit, it did kind of hurt him, even more than a lot of other Six Rangers. Also, and this is something I forgot to mention, or at least I kind of mentioned, I think, back when I talked about both Lost Galaxy and In Space in my Ranking the Seasons review. I kind of wish they had done more with the whole Zane and Astronema / Corone love story. It kind of started going somewhere, but then it didn't. And it was kind of hinted in the last episode that maybe they'd continue the relationship. But because Corone comes back by herself in Lost Galaxy, and Zane is also the only In-Space Ranger that doesn't come back, which is the one thing I forgot to mention back then as well in that other video. And again, I also said at the beginning, I'm not taking outside the season into account. I just wanted to add this in because I forgot to mention it back in that video. I just feel as a whole, like it basically left the romance building between them. It basically went nowhere. And Zane overall, like I said, I really do like the guy. Overall, really good Ranger, but In Space, as much as I love the season, he's just fell short this season. Yeah, so this was one of the first ones that was really hard for me to say, yeah, he's my least favorite, but this is just where he fell, and sadly, like I said, this is just where he had to fall, and yeah, okay. Like, I'm kind of messing up this ending. Okay, so Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, similar with In Space, is a season I really love. So picking my least favorite Ranger for this one was also a bit hard, but in the end, I decided to go with Maya. I mentioned briefly in my ranking video how I kind of wish we'd gotten a little bit more of her backstory. I think we got maybe just one episode of her life on Miranoi before the events of the show began. And I kind of wish there had been a little bit more PTSD with her character about potentially being the last survivor of her entire planet. And I don't mind happy-go-lucky female Rangers, but it just feels a bit out of character for someone like Maya. And also something I mentioned briefly as well in the video. In the Sentai, her counterpart had some sort of rivalry with Deviant, but here they didn't really... And it is noticeable still that she fights Deviant a little bit more, but they don't really give an explanation why. I think there was like a misconnection between the Sentai and the Ranger season. So I guess she just wants to fight Deviant just to fight Deviant. Which, I'll admit, I thought that was weird, so when I looked it back up on the Sentai, I was like, okay, that's why that was like that. But even then, it's kind of a weird connection. And overall, I do like... It is one of the few times where I think the changing the character from male to female from the Sentai Ranger season actually, I think, helped the character a bit. Which, again, I said back in that video I wasn't taking the Sentai into account. I am going to take into account here, because I have seen a little bit of Ginga Man. Well, I've seen more of it recently compared to when I started that other video. But yeah, as for Maya herself, she's all in all okay character. I just wish we had done a little bit more, basically, with her than what we got with her. And just like I said, just wish we should have, like, it just seemed like a missed opportunity on the show, and it just made it feel like she was a bit underdeveloped. But to be fair, the season as a whole, I really do like all the Rangers once again. It's just, this is just where she fell, just bottom of the barrel of an overall really good Ranger team. And so, yeah, do like Maya, but like I said, just a few missed opportunities just kind of held her back. Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Also referencing something I mentioned in my ranking video, a lot of elements from Lightspeed Rescue seem to carry over, at least with the Rangers themselves, seem to carry over from Lost Galaxy. Well, this is another example of that. My least favorite Ranger from Lightspeed Rescue was also the Yellow Ranger, Kelsey. And for a lot of similar reasons. My main issue with Kelsey is that I feel like, once again, a bit underdeveloped. Now, she did have a couple of episodes where she got a little bit of focus, but I feel overall she was probably the least qualified person to be on this Ranger team. I mean, you had a firefighter, you had a medic, you had the sky pilot, you had a martial arts expert slash champion, I guess, I don't know, SeaWorld diver. I'm not really sure exactly what it was Chad did exactly. And then, of course, Ryan, who kind of went off on his own, but he was the most experienced with the demons. Kelsey was just a rollerblader and mountain climber. Now, I'm not saying those two things are impressive. I like to rollerblade. But I feel like, just looking at qualifications alone, she seemed to be the least qualified for the Ranger team. And once again, the few individual episodes she got weren't really that great. Now, I almost picked Dana to be my least favorite this season solely on the whole individual episodes, because hers were also kind of boring. But in the end, I just feel like Kelsey didn't develop as much, because I feel at least because at the very least, the Pink Ranger, because she was related to the Mentor and the Sixth Ranger, at least gave her a little bit more development, like basically how the family affected her character. Was Kelsey, she didn't really have too much character development compared to some of the other Rangers. And while, for example, I found Joel a little bit more annoying than Kelsey at times, Kelsey, I guess, just felt that she left the smallest impact on the season for me personally, and once again, I just wish we had gotten a little bit more with her than we did. So, yeah. For the most part, a lot of these Rangers, like I said back at the beginning, I don't hate them. I just either didn't think they were that good, or were just the weakest and overall strong team. And once again, that's the case here. Okay, now we finally, after I think, 9 seasons, finally hit a Ranger I legitimately do not like, who is my least favorite Ranger from this season. It took a while, but we finally found one from Power Rangers Time Force. My least favorite Ranger, and one I legitimately don't like, is Alex, the first Time Force Red Ranger. I almost originally put another Ranger, but then I remembered, oh yeah, they were just boring. Alex is a Ranger I cannot stand, and yeah, he is really not a great character. Now, there is a little bit of defense to him, and I'll come back to that at the end, but as a whole, I really do not like Alex. Alex started off interesting in the first 2 episodes, but then unfortunately he got killed off, and I thought, oh wow, and this is really sad, seeing the Red Ranger get killed. And while I do feel the whole romance, at least initially, between Jen and Wes was kind of creepy, just because it'd be like dating a younger version of your ex-boyfriend's grandfather, great-grandfather. Once Alex came back and he was just a big jerk to the Rangers, that kind of really quickly, I'd say within that first episode alone, I already hated the guy. Now, partial defense to Alex, and I wonder if this is part of what they were going for. I think they're hinting at the Rangers' changes in the past by fighting Rancic and the few other changes they made in 2001. One, helped save Alex's life, and second, maybe change the future enough to Alex somehow was aware of the changes, so he basically was trying to get them back, whip them back into shape, get them to realize the mistakes of their actions. But he came off as too much of a jerk, and even they kind of pointed it out, I think, and I forgot the name of the episode, I should have looked it up, where basically he comes back in time. And even then, while they kind of end on good terms with Alex after basically he saved, I will say this, he does save Mr. Collins' life, so that is kind of good, but he's still a bit of a jerk, even after the episode, for the most part. He only makes a few cameo appearances after that 2-part, again, I wish I looked up the name, and then before the finale, he basically is just not really likable, it's just he has a sense of, I'm still watching out for you guys, but it's more just because I don't want you to screw up. And then he basically says, you have to come back to the future now, and you don't have a say in this matter. Oh, and you have to have your minds wiped. Now, they say they always do that for Time Force, but it seems like he has, no care whatsoever for the fact his ancestor died, which is a bit of a plot hole. If Wes dies in the past, stopping Rancic defeating all the Cyclobots, wouldn't that mean Alex doesn't exist anymore either? Does he not realize that? I mean, does he not question if Alex knows Wes's ancestor? Doesn't he care the fact that his ancestor died saving the world? So yeah, overall, Alex just very rarely seemed like a likable guy. And he just kept making it almost like he wanted everyone to hate him at times. And I am kind of glad that Jen abandoned the whole, or broke off the engagement in the end by giving him back the engagement ring. Now, whether or not she ended up with Wes in the end, because again, I'm not taking outside stories like comics, video games into account, but at least the fact she didn't end up with Alex, hey, that's a happy ending in my opinion. But yeah, so first time a Ranger I legitimately didn't like, Alex, the original Time Force Red Ranger. He was just unlikable jerk. He had a few times where he somewhat redeemed himself, but even afterwards, I still couldn't stand the guy. So, it took a while, but we finally got one I didn't like. Alright, from Power Rangers Wild Force, my least favorite Ranger here was Merrick. Now, I talked about Merrick briefly, focus on him in particular when I was talking about Wild Force as a whole when I did my seasons ranking. And I'll just kind of make it short here. One of my main problems with Merrick in particular was the acting. Again, I don't want to put down his actor too much, but just for a good chunk of his season, his acting felt kind of stilted. I think that was the word I used last time. And his character was a bit confusing. It felt like they were trying to do, again, I said this as well, the whole Lone Ranger, I want to be on my own. but I also want to fight alongside the team. So it kind of went back and forth, whether, like, exactly, I feel like they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do with him, because there were, like I said, there were other Lone Ranger, I guess, arcs from the previous season Time Force. Eric, I almost said Merrick again. Eric, I think, was a good example of that, in that he did have a sense of being a lone wolf, for lack of a better term, but even by the end, he didn't fully integrate with the team, but he wasn't really, I guess, so willing to look down on the team. And there are other times where the Sixth Ranger may have trouble integrating with the team, whether it be some outside force that's keeping him away from them for a while, or maybe he was at one point a villain and he has trouble feeling like he's accepted by the team. But Merrick, it feels like he never fully integrates with the team, however. And something I didn't mention last time, I really did not like his relationship with Princess Shayla. If it was something in the Sentai, I haven't seen that much of Power Ranger. I've been meaning to look back on a few of these Sentais, and a few of them I have seen more of since the first video I did. But if it was something they tried carrying over from the Sentai, it wasn't well handled here. And of course the song they had was pretty stupid. It almost feels like a weird kid's fever dream, that whole nature song they did together. But yeah, America as a whole, just not a great Sixth Ranger. He's one of the few that I don't really like. If I ever do a Sixth Rangers top 10 list, he definitely wouldn't be on it. Now, I don't hate him, but I also don't love him. Like, there's really little about him I'd say is bad enough to me not to like the guy, but he's still weaker than the rest of the Rangers, and that's what made him, once again, qualify for the list. Just didn't really like him as much as the rest of the Rangers, so that's kind of where he fell. Power Rangers Ninja Storm. Once again, this was a season that was kind of hard to pick a least favorite Ranger. But this one was because there were actually two Rangers I had to decide between. And that was Blake and Hunter. And it was kind of hard to pick between the two which one was my least favorite. Because I do like the core trio and I do like Cam. But it was really the Thunder Rangers I had trouble picking. But in the end, individually, the one I thought was the weakest, I decided to go with Hunter. I mentioned this briefly also in my ranking video where I said at least Blake kind of had that love triangle between him, Tori, and Cam. Like which one would really kind of end up with her in the end, though. As far as I could find, neither really ends up with her, I guess, fully in a relationship in the end. So I'm not really sure why they went with this element then if it didn't really feel like it reached a natural conclusion. But at least that was something. Hunter, I felt like, didn't really get much. Similar with Rocky back in Mighty Morphin. Because he was often so much with his brother, there were very few times where he got to stand out on his own. And the few times he does, I don't really care for his individual episodes. Now, they're not bad, but they're probably less memorable than a few of the other individual Ranger episodes. And while he does kind of, there was that three-parter near the beginning of the season where the Thunder Rangers and the Wind Rangers are trapped on that island. I feel, and while he does kind of have like this whole Chubo mind controlling him thing, it is kind of interesting, but I feel like that's the peak of his development. The rest of the season, whether he's on his own or with his brother, I feel like more of the focus goes to his brother rather than him proper. So, yeah, and it's weird because Hunter did seem like he was the older brother, so I feel like he would have had more. I mean, I feel like there should have been more with him than he got. Now, once again, I don't hate him, but I just feel like he was underdeveloped. So, yeah, that's just seems to be the recurring problem. I think I've said that before already. With a lot of these Rangers, just felt like they weren't bad, but they just weren't that great either. And sadly, I just think Hunter was my least favorite Ranger from the season. And one last thing I also said from the ranking video, I did like this season as a kid, but another element I thought I liked as a kid a lot that I really didn't as much looking back was the Thunder Rangers. I thought they were really great as a kid, but as an adult, they're okay, and just not as well as I remembered, but again, not bad. Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Okay, so this season was also difficult to pick, but a little bit different reason from a lot of other seasons. There were only 5 Rangers this time, and I feel like for the most part, all 5 Rangers got pretty good overall development. So picking the one I thought was my least favorite, the one who I think got the weakest, that was overall the weakest, was kind of hard. And I really do love this team. But in the end, it was hard, but I decided to pick, as my least favorite, Connor. I think my main issue with Connor, and the reason why he basically is my least favorite, Connor is a bit of an idiot. And while he does develop as a character, it does take a while for that development to be noticeable. Because I'll say this, if I were to do a top 10 Red Rangers list, Connor would probably not be on it. And, well, like I said, there are plenty of examples of where he's kind of a moron. Like, first episode, he basically has a bit of sexist views towards Principal Randall because she's a woman. He also, I think, basically only tried to ask out, join this one, I guess, nature club or some sort of, like, environmental, I guess, protest just to impress this girl he liked. Now, sure, he saved the girl in the episode and he got his battleizer, but it's kind of a one-off. I wish we'd gotten more with that girl other than her in this one episode and then him going out to the prom with her. And for the most part, he doesn't really get a lot of good individual episodes. Now, when he gets, there was like a couple of episodes where there was that battleizer, like, light thing from the Sentai, I forgot what it was called, where he had the shield. He does have his moments as a fighter where he stands out pretty well. And, he's overall okay as a leader. But again, what holds him back is the fact he's a bit of an idiot, and he does kind of say and do some stupid things throughout the course of the show. Now, yeah, if you want to have a Ranger start off kind of not that smart, and then have them develop and show, like, oh, they actually may be smarter than we realized, or maybe they have grown as a person, and maybe their views have changed, that's one thing. But with Connor, I feel like even by the end of the season, he still is a bit of an idiot. He's a lot braver, and he's a lot more willing to fight with people he cares about. I'll give him, like, that kind of, like, they give him that development, I'll give him that. But he's still, what really hurts him, again, is the fact he's just not really the smartest leader. It does kind of hurt his character a bit. And while, like, overall the guy, like I said, does become more likable in the end, he's still one of my least favorite Reds. And this is just kind of where he became my least favorite Ranger this season. Power Rangers SPD. This one initially had the opposite problem of SPD, of Dino Thunder, sorry. Because SPD, unlike Dino Thunder, has a lot of Rangers. So initially I thought it'd be hard to pick my least favorite, but then I realized, oh no, actually this one was one of the easiest to pick my least favorite. My least favorite was Sam, the Omega Ranger. Now, it is a combination of wasted potential and unlikable character, though, which makes me not like Sam. Like, we have one, once again, I don't actually like. I do not like Sam. He's pretty much the only Ranger this season I didn't like. While I did have a few issues with Sky, I didn't hate Sky, although he was a close second for this, but no, Sam was worse. Now, Sam, as a kid, I kind of wish we'd gotten a little bit more with him. Like, maybe had an episode where his kid self came back to encounter his older self. That would have been interesting. So that right there was already a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Because Sam, as a kid, doesn't come back at all. And Sam, whenever he's Omega, well, the Ball of Light, that was stupid. I mean, there were a few cool ideas they had with the Ball of Light. Like, it kind of like being in the background for a few episodes. And then the Ball of Light saving the Rangers at one point. So there were a few interesting ideas with the Ball of Light, but it was still kind of a dumb idea. Because whenever he's morphed, he's basically only morphed when fighting, and a few times basically just like when the Rangers like some sort of celebration, but they're not really... It feels like Sam doesn't really bond with the Rangers. And yeah, a lot of Six Rangers, in addition to the whole Lone Wolf thing that I mentioned back with Wild Force, a lot of Six Rangers initially might have this idea, well, my tech is better, or I do better on my own, or I just don't belong with the team right now. I'm used to, I have like a tragic backstory that makes it so I wouldn't feel accepted, or I feel like I shouldn't be part of the team. But Sam, he's a bit too arrogant, and he kind of has this sense of, because I'm from the future, and yeah, sure, I'm stuck here, and you guys are helping me fine, but I can handle this on my own. Now, sure, there are times where he will help the Rangers, but it does take a while for this whole I'm better off on my own thing to kind of go away. And sure, while he does get a few times like to show how great he is as a fighter, I feel like as a character, Sam doesn't really develop at all once he basically is integrated with the team. Sure, he does get a chance to help in the finale lead all the SPD cadets and staff to fight off the Trubian Empire, which is kind of cool. But yeah, as a whole individual, as a character, Sam doesn't really have much character. And I kind of wish we had gotten more with his whole relationship with Nova. Maybe if he had hinted in the past that he had a girlfriend or a partner that he also had basically got separated through the time stream or something, or timeline, whatever the term she used was. I've been looking all over the timeline for you. And maybe if he had mentioned he had a girlfriend in the form of Nova, maybe that would have been something to his development. So when they got reconnected in the finale, that would have been something else to his character. So yeah, it's a combination of overall not likable character and a bit of few missed opportunities with his character. And that's why I just didn't like Sam and least favorite from SPD. Power Rangers Mystic Force. Overall, a season I did not like, and part of the reason why I didn't like it was, once again, I did not like the Red Ranger. Now, someone might point this out. You didn't like Connor in Dino Thunder, but it was one of your top seasons. But Mystic Force, you don't like the Red Ranger Nick, and it's one of your bottom seasons. Yeah, but it's in my bottom 5 for a lot of reasons, not just the fact I don't like Nick, though not liking Nick is one of the big reasons. Whereas with Dino Thunder, there were, and also with Mystic Force, there were several characters I didn't like, whereas Dino Thunder, Connor, I just didn't like that much, but overall I do like the team. Mystic Force as a whole, there were a lot of things I didn't like about it, including a few members of the team. But yeah, Nick himself, he has a bit of a confusing character, and at times he is also an idiot. So there are a few parallels between him and Connor, but at least Connor, while he didn't develop too much as a character, I feel like he had enough moments where he was with the team, and it felt like he at least learned a little bit. Nick, I feel like, didn't learn as much, and as a whole, it felt like, well, there's a few examples where his idiocy or his sense of ignorance kind of basically was more noticeable for me, at least than it was with Connor, where it hurt the story. So in the first 2 episodes, the whole Nick not wanting to believe in magic. Now, part of that can be explained by the whole, he doesn't feel like he wants to stay in any one place for too long. He is kind of a bit of a loner. And I feel what the story was trying to go for, at least for a good chunk of the season, was him open up to people and feel more accepted once he find his family. But there were times where it didn't really work, at least in the first half of the season. Then the second half, where he becomes essentially a Chosen One story, it also kind of hurts. Now, I'm not against Chosen One stories or prophecy stories of a specific warrior coming to save the day, or who will be able to stop the evil. But in a show like Power Rangers, where you have a team of heroes, a Chosen One individual within a team kind of hurts the story, because making him the whole light plot with all the 10 terrors kind of put so much focus on his character, but he's an unlikable character for the most part, so it also hurt him a bit. And the whole him and Madison relationship. Now, I'm not saying every Red Ranger needs to have a relationship, but if you're gonna appear to go the route of a relationship, go all out. Don't have it just be a few episodes at the beginning and a few episodes at the end, because then it just feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere. You completely forget about it, and then it goes back to that very quickly, abruptly, for no real reason. If you were gonna do a Madison and Nick romance, actually go through with the romance, because otherwise it's just kind of confusing. Now, yes, I'm aware in the Sentai, the Blue Ranger was in a relationship with the Gold Ranger, and I'm glad they didn't pursue that here, given how much older the Gold Ranger is compared to the rest of the Rangers. But, again, if you're going to go a route of a romance, that's kind of a bit of a nag on Madison's character. Like I said, there were a few Rangers this season I didn't like. Go all out on it. But even the fact that Nick didn't pursue it, I feel was a missed opportunity. If he realized Madison had feelings for him, then why did he leave? Why didn't he want to stay and try and pursue something here? And there are a few moments where the whole family dynamic, I feel like, kind of worked, but there are a few times where I feel like it didn't. And probably going to get some hate for pointing this out once again. If both of his parents' actors are Caucasian and his actor is Latino, I mean, I'm half Caucasian, half Latino. Whenever and I'm just saying, really, that was kind of confusing. Why couldn't you get one of his 2 parents to be a Latino or Latina actor? But yeah, that's just my nitpick compared to everything else. Overall, Nick was not a great Red Ranger. Definitely one of my least favorite. And in an overall season I didn't like, it hurt him a little bit more, in my opinion. And yeah, least favorite in an overall season I didn't like. Power Rangers Operation Overdrive. Another season I really didn't like. And a Ranger team overall that had a few Rangers I didn't like. And a bit cliche, I know, with this one, but ultimately I decided to go with Dax as my least favorite. Once again, Dax, it's a combination of a bit of idiocy and a bit of just kind of a not well-written character. Now, here's the thing. There are a few things about Dax I kind of like. I do like the idea that he did briefly date Miratrix, I believe was her name, and then he kind of has that kind of affect him over the course of the season, like, because it is brought up a few times how it is not really traumatizing, but it does affect his feelings for her in fighting and whenever they had to fight each other. But it didn't really feel like it reached a good conclusion in the end, given that Camdor trapped her in the crystal, and then when Will destroyed Camdor, nothing ever came from the fact she was trapped in that crystal. And I feel like that would have been something for his character if he had actually been able to defeat her in battle, or try to redeem her. If either had happened, that would have at least been something for Dax as a character, but it never happened. And sure, there are a few times where he showed, like, his character, I'm not against this idea of a stuntman who kind of wants to get the limelight, but the episodes where that gets focused are some of the dumbest ones of the season, like the whole him wanting to star in this short film, and then he completely ruins the film by just walking off sets. Yeah, he picks being a ranger over an actor, and then in the end of the season he realizes being an actor is not everything. There's more to a film than just acting. That's why he wants to go, I think, to writing and directing. So at least there's somewhat growth there. I think Linkara was kind of wrong on that one by saying he had no growth. But he's still a really annoying ranger. And sure, while I didn't like a lot of other rangers from Overdrive, Will had his fair share of problems, but the main issue with Will is really more of his actor and how big of an unlikable jerk he is off screen. And I still defend the whole Mac being an android. Ronnie, I feel, was one-dimensional, but she was at least somewhat of a fun character, at least for me. So yeah, the overall team of Overdrive was not a great Ranger team, but I'll at least defend Dax in some points, but that still doesn't overlook the fact he's still my least favorite Ranger, because overall he just wasn't that great of a Ranger. He was a bit annoying at times. He did have some of the dumber lines this season. And I felt like, once again, there were some ideas that just didn't work out with him. And that's kind of why he falls where he fell. But again, this is still my second from the bottom season, because overall I didn't like this team. And while I didn't initially want to say Dax was my least favorite, it's just where the cards fell. I didn't like him as a character that much. So yeah, least favorite from this season too. Power Rangers Jungle Fury was another season that was kind of hard to pick my least favorite Ranger for. It was kind of a back and forth between two. At some points, I thought it was going to be Dominic. At some points, I thought it was going to be Theo. But in the end, I decided to go with Theo. Now, I don't hate Theo. And my main issue with Theo, and this one might be a little bit more debatable, I feel like his character didn't really develop that much. And he did have a few individual focus episodes that were okay. But I feel like his individual focus episodes were some of the weaker ones. Well, I feel like Lily got also short end of the stick with some of her individual focus episodes. I felt like hers were a little bit more memorable and overall a little bit more enjoyable than Theo's were. And Theo, while he does have one episode where he has the deal with like the whole issue with his twin brother, like how his brother's the more outgoing and more popular one, and it at least gives him something for his character. And whereas Dominic at times also was annoying, Theo's annoyance kind of bothered me more than, say, Dominic's annoyance. And Theo, while he did have a few times where he did seem like he was learning stuff, there were also times where Theo came off as a bit, not necessarily arrogant, but he felt like he was a bit over the fact that Casey was less experienced than he was, and that he did try to, like, handle, like, oh, well, like, I'm perfect except for this, or, yeah, I'm good at this, but I could get better. Like, I know they were trying to go, like, with that angle, but I didn't feel like I feel like it didn't work as well as they were trying to go with with writing his character this season. Now, part of that could also be affected by the fact that the writers in Jungle Fear at the beginning switched out. They had new writers because of the writer's strike when the season was airing. Because I did also notice there are a few, I guess, plot holes or elements that changed from the first half to the second half. But like I said, Theo as a whole is not a great character. I don't hate him. Like I said, it was kind of between him and Dominic, because both I found annoying at times. But I just feel like Theo as a whole was the weakest this season. And there are a few moments where he's okay. And I am kind of glad that he and Lily do end up in a bit of a relationship with the end. But I felt more happy seeing Dominic end up with Fran in the end, just because I felt like Fran, I really liked her as a side character. So even in that element, I felt like Theo didn't do as well as Dominic. So like I said, I didn't really care for either, but in the end, just barely I decided to go with Theo. Power Rangers RPM. I still don't know why I do the arm thing when I say RPM. But overall, I really did love this team. It was my third favorite season, and part of it was the fact how much I really liked this Ranger team. And it was a bit harder than some of the others to pick my least favorites, because I don't hate anyone on this team. So in the end, it was difficult, but I decided to go with Jim, the Gold Ranger, or Series Op Ranger Gold, or however they said it in this season. It was kind of a weird thing that kind of bothered me. The Ranger Series Operator, I think is how they said it. I don't know. But yeah, point is, Jim, the Gold Ranger, was ultimately my least favorite. Now, I did mention this briefly when I talked about RPM as a season. While I do like Jim and Gemma, the whole twin telepathy speech thing kind of got old pretty quickly. Now, there were times where it was funny, but overall, it once again is an example of when you introduce multiple Rangers at the same time, it's hard for them to stand out individually. And I feel Jim, as an individual Ranger, only got one episode where he really stands out. And it's the one where Truman gave Jim a medal, and Scott was jealous that his father recognized Jim's heroism after just one mission, whereas he didn't get... But that was really a bit more of a Scott-focused episode than a Jim-focused episode a bit. And I think Gemma had like 2 or 3 individual episodes, whereas Jim only had the one. And then they go back to the whole twin telepathy speech thing again. And again, sometimes I thought it was funny, but there were times where it was a bit annoying. So the fact he only had one individual episode that really made him stand out is ultimately what kind of hurt him. Because Jim and Gemma overall, I do like them as characters. It's just Jim didn't really get that much focus to stand out on. And I feel like the rest of the Rangers, with the exception of Summer, all basically kind of had a bit of an arc to their character over the course of the season. But even then, Summer at least had her whole relationship with Dylan, even if it wasn't necessarily a full-long arc. I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 episodes to focus on the relationship. And in the end, like I said, Gemma at least kind of had a couple more individual episodes than Jem did. And Jem as a character, I'd say, if Gemma wasn't around, if it was just Jem as a 6th Ranger, I don't think he would have had much in terms of character development or even a defined character other than just a guy who was really eccentric that liked to blow stuff up. Which is kind of cool, but like I said, it almost makes him feel a bit one-dimensional because he only got so much focus as an individual character, and that's kind of where he fell. So, do still love the season. Overall, do love the team. But Jem, I feel like, was the weakest. Power Rangers Samurai. I still stand by what I said back in my Ranking the Seasons review, that while initially I didn't like Samurai when it was on, rewatching it, I don't think it's as bad as I remembered. It's still an season because there are a lot of things that hold it back, and one of the main things was the Ranger team. Now, there are elements and individual episodes that make me not hate any of the Rangers, but there are also a lot of stupid things and bad things that kind of hold a lot of these Rangers back from being a great team. So picking just one this season as my least favorite was more difficult than a lot of other seasons, whereas I only have 1 or 2 I don't like, whereas this season, a lot of them I didn't like. In the end, I decided to go with Mia the Pink Ranger. And while there are a few things, like I said, I do like about every Ranger, so picking just one as my least favorite was hard, and Mia is no exception. I mean, there is a bit of the whole backstory and bit of connection between her and Dayu whenever she saw the flashback of their past. And there are a few times where she, I guess, is trying to win over Dayu. And she is overall a likable character. But there are a few things about her I don't like. One thing in particular that I think kind of hurt Samurai, I don't remember if I mentioned this or not when I was talking about the season, was it felt like the season wanted to do multiple, I guess, love stories, but then didn't really go through fully on any of them. Because in the first half, in Power Rangers Samurai, at first I felt like it was going to be a Mia and Kevin romance. Then they tried going for a Mia and Jaden romance. Then they completely dropped any, I guess, romance with Mia at all to focus on, well, sort of focus on Emily and Mike in the second season. So any, I guess, romance Mia was going to have was basically forgotten come season 2. Surprisingly, Kara didn't point that out. Or if he did, I don't remember him pointing that out. And then there was one episode where it kind of focused on her and her brother, and, well, the whole her kind of being, I guess, like a singer thing was played for laughs a few times. I kind of wish it had been more, I guess, noticeable in her character in the first season, that maybe she did want to consider a singing career. At least then maybe those couple of episodes in the second season where they did that maybe would have made more sense. So kind of a missed opportunity there. And, of course, the whole her wanting to be a cook, but her cooking's not that good was funny, but I feel like they played it up too much. Like, maybe just cut it maybe a couple of episodes. I will admit, the whole Lauren loving her cooking because she probably wasn't used to eating it before was a funny, like, payoff, but I feel like they spent too much time basically on this whole element of, oh, Mia's not a good cook, and everyone's just eating her cooking not to hurt her feelings thing. Again, happy she ends up going to culinary school in the end, but I don't know. I feel like it was just overall kind of a dumb thing to have. Now, I think it was in the Sentai, so if they chose to carry that over from the Sentai, like a lot of elements from Samurai, I understand. I just wish it had been done better. And like I said, there are a few elements about me I do like, same with every Ranger this season, but when about half the team I don't like, it was kind of hard to pick just one. And ultimately, like I said, she was just the one I felt was overall my least favorite, and the one whose faults, I think, hurt her more than other Rangers, so this is where she fell. Power Rangers Megaforce / Super Megaforce. Yay, we're back to this season. I'm going to try and keep this one brief, because I already talked about it a bit in my ranking video. I do not like this season, and once again, I'm just going to say it, Troy, not a great Red Ranger, definitely one of the worst. Now, I will say, slight defense to Andrew Gray, and kind of a strange comparison to Doctor Who. I feel like he was at his best at the very end of the season. Similar with Peter Davison, I feel like, at least with the stories I have seen, he was at his best in, I guess, like the end of Season 3. Andrew Gray in his last few episodes was overall okay as a Red Ranger, but it took a long time for me to get there. I really did not like Troy basically at all in Season 1, or the first half of Season 2 of Megaforce. It was really only the last handful of episodes. It's like, okay, Troy's actually okay as a Red Ranger, but when like 75% of the episodes you're in, I do not like you as a character. It's like, yeah. Even Andrew Gray himself told the writers, hey, maybe you should give a little bit more backstory, a little bit more character development, not just, and this was something that a lot of the actors did. But when the actor is pointing out, hey, writers, I don't think this character is well written or that well developed, maybe you should change it up a bit, add some more to this character, that's a sign that they know how bad the story and the characters are. Now, there are a few times where Troy, like I said, it's mainly in the second half of Season 2, where he starts to come on his own, but it took a long time for me to really like Troy as a character. And there were a few interesting ideas they started to go somewhere. Like, he had a bit of a rivalry early on in the first half with one of the insectoids, I forgot his name, but then he's killed off like by episode 7. Now, once again, partial defense to Megaforce. Ghost Sager was basically 3 mini Sentais, so you had, a mini Sentai was like 7 episodes in the US version, so. And in the second half, in Super Megaforce, again, there are a few times where he is a bit arrogant, bit of an idiot, like the whole episode, we just won't let go of our weapons. And there are times where he's just there. Like, he doesn't really do much as a leader to, lead. Again, he is at his best in the final handful of episodes. For example, the one where he's kidnapped by Damaris. And there is the whole him trying to convince to help Romanite remember his past. Like, in those episodes, he's actually pretty good, but it took so long and so many dumb episodes for us to get to where Troy was at least a passable Red Ranger. But I still stand by the fact he's one of the worst, definitely bottom 5. And he was something that did hold back a good chunk of the season when your Red Ranger is not that great of a leader. Now, there were other bad Rangers also in Megaforce and Super Megaforce, but Troy was the only one I legitimately didn't like for most of the season. And this is just another Ranger I wish could have been better, but nope, didn't like in the end, and this is where he fell. Least favorite from this season, in an overall season I didn't like. Power Rangers Dino Charge / Dino Supercharge. This was, once again, a season with a lot of Rangers, And initially it was a little hard to pick just one to be my least favorite, but like I said, when I rewatched the season, I said this in my rankings list, really there was only one to me that felt legitimately bad, whereas a handful of others had like their one or two bad episodes or bad moments. And for me, my least favorite this season was James, the Aqua Ranger. Now, I did mention this in the video, I'll keep it short here. There is a bit of a plot hole with whole James's character. So he survived some sort of cave-in saving another, I guess, explorer, Rusty's life. And he's basically trapped in the cave for a while, but him bonding to the Energem is what saved his life. He eventually gets out, but then he doesn't go home to his family. He doesn't let his wife and son know that he's alive. He doesn't check in on his son from time to time. He just shows up halfway through Season 2. So right off the bat, there is a bit of a plot hole with how this works. Then you add on to it a little bit more to the whole fact that at the end of the season, following the whole create a new universe or dimension where dinosaurs and humans coexist, if he's unbonded to his Energem, is he now essentially closer to age to his son than he is as as basically the equivalent of being a father to his son? Like, they never addressed that. I personally wish they had found a way whenever they sent Ivan and Coda back in time, if they had also sent James back in time like 10 years, and then have him age naturally, and then just meet up with them at the Dinosaur Museum Zoo thing. But even then, part of it also hurts James. Like I said, he's one of only 2 Rangers that came in Season 2. We got most of the team introduced in Season 1. Now, yeah, Xenowing was also introduced in Season 2, but I felt like his character was more of a character than James's was. James just didn't feel like he did that much. Now, sure, he went out to try and help find the villain's hideout and the remaining the Energem, sorry. But I feel like as a character, he didn't really do much. Sure, there were 1 or 2 genuinely good moments between him and Tyler. So there were some father-son moments that were okay. But like I said, as a whole, he was the only one I didn't really like this season. Again, part of it coming in so late. Part of it is a bit of the plot hole with his character. Part of it just not really being a well-developed character. So 1 out of, 10, 11 Rangers this season? That's okay. That's actually pretty good in terms of a Ranger team that I like all but just one of them. So, just like I said, he's just the only one I didn't like. Finally, we have Power Rangers, Ninja Steel. When I did my ranking list, Beast Morphers hadn't started yet, but as of the time I'm recording this, we've reached the hiatus for Beast Morphers, so I feel like it's enough time has passed for me to talk about Ninja Steel. I still don't know where it would have ranked in my ranking list. It still would have been in the Ant category, I know that. I just don't know where I would have put it specifically in the number. And as for my opinions on the Rangers as a whole, this one actually wasn't that hard. I decided to go with Dane, the Red Ranger, well, the father of the Red and Gold Rangers this season, because the season had 3 Red Rangers. Now, I've not seen that much of Ninja, so I am aware that the father and grandfather were also Red Rangers, whereas this season it was the father and the mentor or tech support character, Mick. But in the end, Dane as a Red Ranger, he was not that good. I don't hate Dane, but he was only in like 4 or 5 episodes out of like 40 to 45 episodes. Now, for the first half, they kind of give a good excuse. He's basically trapped inside the Ninja Steel Nexus Prism. So, in the second half of the season, I thought, okay, good. We might get to see him maybe a little bit more often, and we might see him and Mick morph again. But we didn't. At least Mick, he was basically around almost every episode, so he had more of a defined character. Like, we got his backstory from the Lion Galaxy. We got to see that closure of him going back home to see his family, but then he comes back to help out on Earth anyway. Dane, though, he basically has no development really at all. We see him fight Galvanax in the beginning, and he helps defeat Galvanax at the end of Season 1. He drops his sons off at school at the beginning of Season 2. Then he's mind control at the end of Season 2, and that's pretty much it. He doesn't morph again. Now, sure, Mick doesn't morph again either. Don't know why they don't morph again. They couldn't find a way to bring him back as Rangers again. But, like I said, Dane's there, 4 or 5 episodes. He doesn't... And they don't even give a good excuse why he doesn't come back. That's the other thing. Now, yeah, he's a guest star, so you're not going to have him be recurring on the show. But at least back in, say, Dino Charge, you had James and Prince Philip come in for a few episodes, more than Dane did. And again, James was in more episodes, but he came in halfway into Season 2. Dane appeared in the first episode of Season 1, and he was only in, like I said, 4 or 5 episodes. So you didn't give him much time to develop, and whenever he was there, I felt like he didn't really do much on his own. Now, sure, the whole him being mind-controlled thing was kind of interesting, but why couldn't you use this as an excuse to say somehow make him morph again, and he has to fight his son's morphed? That would have, I think, been at least something. But like I said, he was my least favorite because he really just didn't do anything, and didn't really like that. All in all, an okay character, but because he was used so little, I didn't really think there was much to that character. Alright, and just like that, I am done. I mean, this was still a fairly long video, but it was still way shorter than the last Power Rangers video I did. And I have a couple more in the future I'm going to do, but it'll probably be a while before I get to those again. Probably another couple months, because I have other videos over the next month or so I have planned. So, yeah, it was nice talking about this again. And if you stuck through it, really appreciate your viewership. Give this video a like, subscribe to me if you haven't, share a comment, and hopefully I'll get back to you. And stay tuned for, I guess, more videos next time. And now I'll just say thank you for listening and watching, and have a good day. Take care.